Well, let me show you the primary literature. 2018 in the journal Nature. This is our top journal. You want to see what Nature will publish in this area? None of us could get away with this, except origin of life researchers do. This guy is Nobel laureate Jack Szostak. Here's what he writes on how did life begin. Let's go through it. I'm interested in it. How did life begin? I mean, the guy's the Nobel Prize winner. He must know. The early atmosphere had no oxygen. It consisted mainly of nitrogen, carbon dioxide with smaller amounts of hydrogen, water, and methane. Lightning, asteroid impacts, UV light from the sun acted on the atmosphere to generate hydrogen cyanide, a compound of hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen. Raining into volcanic or crater lakes, the cyanide reacted with iron, brought up water circulating through rocks. The resulting iron cyanide compounds accumulated over time, building up into a concentration stew of reactive chemicals. Okay, cool. Where are we? Life, as we know it, requires RNA. Some scientists believe that RNA emerged directly from these reactive chemicals, nudged along by dynamic forces in the environment. Huh? Nudged has no, you can't put nudged in any of our articles. No scientist knows what nudged means. They don't know. Nucleotides, the building blocks of RNA, eventually formed, then joined together to make strands of RNA. Some stages of the process are still not well understood. You think? How do these things hook together? Show me the chemistry. It's not there. Once RNA was made, some strands of it become enclosed within tiny vesicles formed by spontaneous assembly of fatty acid lipids into membranes, creating the first protocells. As the membranes incorporated more fatty acids, they grew and divided. At the same time, internal chemical reactions drove replication of encapsulated RNA. That is nonsense. Next slide. Here is, next slide, the figure that he showed. This is the figure from Nature. This is his figure. Cyanide derivatives and simple sugars. Those are not sugars. He says this is oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. That's fictitious. I don't know any sugars that have that chemical composition. You don't know that. Is this HCN? I mean, there should be a carbon, a nitrogen, and a hydrogen if that's HCN. And I'm colorblind, but I can see that's not really HCN. I don't know what that is. Maybe that's phosphate. I can see that. That'd be phosphorus, oxygen. Maybe that's phosphate. Okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, you got an RNA nucleotide. But the problem is that's not a nucleotide. It's the wrong structure. By far, that's the wrong structure. He didn't even put the right structure. At least he could have put the right structure. He didn't even put the right structure. Well, what's acting upon this to make it do this? Well, heat from here, UV light from there. Boom. Nobody knows. That's in Nature. That's not in an 8th grade textbook from 2018. People think I selectively choose these things from crazy places. No, this is Nature 2018. This is what confuses even professors. See this and they think, oh, yeah, people know. Nobody knows. This is a bunch of garbage. This is garbage. Next slide. All right, exquisite exactness is needed in synthetic protocols. This is one of the kingpins in origin of life research from Oxford, John Sutherland. I've never spoken to John. I'm not sure he likes me. But so this is from Nature Chemistry 2015. Next slide. So you go back to his protocols. You go to the supplemental procedures, you read his protocols. It is amazing how hard it is to make the things that he says he wants to make. And then he makes a little bit of it, and it's a bunch of junk. And so then he says, well, we'll just use synthetic organic techniques, real techniques, to make more, just to simplify handling procedures. Come on, because you could only make like a fraction of it, and you wanted to carry it on, but it was just a bunch of junk. It was just a peak in it's not real. And even with all your synthetic prowess, and these are just for intermediates, not even the real compounds. Next slide. So to give you an idea, so he takes copper 1 and he says he makes it Copper chloride was mixed with potassium chloride to generate the Newland catalyst at 70 degrees. So this is supposed to mimic a prebiotic earth. But he's using all clean glassware. He's not under a rock. He's in an advanced organic lab. Separately generated source of acetylene was prepared from calcium carbide and water. This gas was bubbled through the Newland catalyst to prepare acrylonitrile. This is a highly unstable molecule. You look at acrylonitrile, it'll polymerize. When you buy it with stabilizers to keep it from polymerizing. So he has to properly inhibit its polymerization and store it. Then he treats it with potassium cyanide for 1 hour with 5 equivalents of ammonia as a 13 molar ammonium solution adjusted to pH 9.2 with sodium hydroxide to generate the desired aminopropionitrile. I mean, this is hard chemistry to do. Even if I gave this to synthetic chemists, this would be hard to pull off. Hard chemistry. There's all this. Even the most skilled synthetic chemists preparing a very simple precursors to very few of the molecules within the building block class. And all the precursors, and then we're all racemic at that. Next slide. Then he even goes so far as to say all the cellular subsystems could have arisen simultaneously through common chemistry. That is crazy. Man, I'll tell you, if you work in the area of nanotechnology, you try to build systems. You take molecules to build into a system that functioned. He says they all could have arisen simultaneously through common chemistry. That's a lie. And it's accepted in the best of journals. This is crazy. All he made was a couple of precursors and he's going into the assembly of all substances. Show me. If it could have happened, show me. He'll never show you. Next slide. So then here's an article from 12 December 2018. So this is like a month ago. This comes out now in Nature Communications, Prebiotic Chemistry and Human Intervention. So now they're saying, yeah, you know, if you're really going to copy prebiotic chemistry, you can't have too much intervention. So they're beginning to catch on. I'm surprised the journal took this. He says, such a pure chemical scenario is unrealistic prebiotically, but necessary. He's saying if you want to do something prebiotic, you got to have clean chemicals. He says nobody's really explained this. Furthermore, the ideal experiment does not involve any human intervention. So this is this guy, Clemens Richard. They're beginning to catch on. Next slide. How close have researchers come to making an artificial cell? Well, we know now. We know how close they've come. How do we know? Because in November 2018, that's just a couple months ago, Science magazine, top journal, says biologists create the most lifelike artificial cells. Whoa, I want to see what they've made. Let's see how far along it really is. Next slide. So they're commenting on this article which appeared in Nature Communications in November 2018. Communication and quorum sensing in non-living mimics of eukaryotic cells. Wow, they made these cells and they're communicating with one another. Quorum sensing, meaning that they can tell distance between each other. Let me read about this. Next slide. So semi-porous microcapsules were made of plastic from acrylate polymerization containing clay were prepared using modern microfluidic techniques done within fabrication devices. So you go into a clean room, you build microfluidic devices, and you polymerize, you make polymers around clay. That's all well known, how to do that. That's what they did. These are plastic shells. Clays have a high affinity for binding DNA because clays are positively charged, DNA is negatively charged. So you add DNA to the solution, it goes through the porous plastic and binds to the clay. Then they buy ribosomes and RNA, enzymes, and reagents were purchased or extracted, and they add that to the medium. Those diffuse into. And the normal protein synthesis starts taking place, which is normal synthesis, and then some of that diffuses out of those, and then the nearby ones they add, some of it diffuses into the nearby ones. The ones that are nearer get more diffused into them than the ones further away. Well, duh, that's normal diffusion gradient. The ones that are closer get hit more often. The chemistry is going to work. Next slide. The chemistry of the exogenously added reagents will work regardless of the container, whether it's a plastic semi-porous microcapsule, as was used, in a test tube, or in a large industrial production vat. The chemistry is the same. It's done all the time. You take these biological derived systems, you add them together, proteins will start being made. This is how proteins are made. You know, you buy these drugs. How are they made? They're made in vats. Well, this guy did it in a little microcapsule. That's the most lifelike system that's ever been made, according to Science magazine. That's it. So it is far from the press hype claims of gene expression and communication rivaling that of living cells. That's what the press is saying. There is no rivalry here. No one. Further, one might arguably agree that these are indeed the most lifelike artificial cells yet, but that only serves to underscore the point. Nobody has ever come close to generating the workings of life. Nobody's even close. You do this chemistry in the lab all the time. So they did it in a microporous capsule, and they said, whoa, this is life. My test tube is life then. Next slide. Fool's gold. So if you take sulfur and you add it to different metals, those metals can turn yellowish, and then they'll turn golden looking. Iron sulfide. Well, when alchemists made iron sulfide, don't you think they would think that, wow, if you add enough sulfur to different elements, it's going to start being gold? They knew it wasn't gold. It didn't have the same ductility, didn't have the same melting point. But wouldn't they have thought, hey, we're at least we're going in the right direction? They would have thought that. But no, you're totally wrong. You can add sulfur to any element you want all day. It's never going to turn into gold. We know now the only way to make gold from another element is you change the number of protons. Then you need a nuclear process, which is a lot more expensive than gold. So you can get thrown off. Just because it looks like gold, it's not really gold, and you're way off base. Next slide. So what I'm saying is I'd like to have a moratorium on the origin of life research, so a change is warranted. And we've got to change the way we do things. And we need to address fundamental problems here in origin of life research. Next slide. Again, one more slide. Here's the ramifications of calling conjectures facts. Claims that mislead the patient taxpayer are unhelpful, and the public will even distrust scientific claims into other fields. Uncorrected or unfounded assertions jeopardize science beyond a singular field, especially since there's mounting distrust of higher education in general. Condescending comments toward the public or a student, if they will not embrace our conjectures as facts, will lead to continued division between our scientists and non-scientists, which can yield public reluctance to fund our research. We must tell the truth with specificity. If it is a fact, say it. If it's not a fact, say it. Blackballing scientists if they bear legitimate nonconformist views by excluding them from professional societies and academies, withholding their funding or denying them tenure is anti-scientific, and it will retard the advancement of science. Next slide.